Welcome to Emma's English. Hey, English learners! Welcome back to Emma's English Talk, your cozy little place to learn real, everyday English through natural conversations. I'm Emma.
And I'm Tom. We are so happy to have you join us today for another episode where we talk about the little details of daily life while helping you level up your English.
Exactly, Tom. Today, we are going to dive into a topic that I think absolutely everyone has experienced, and it usually involves a lot of internal panic.
Internal panic? Ooh, that sounds exciting and slightly terrifying. What is this mysterious topic, Emma?
Well, have you ever been walking down the street or maybe shopping in a grocery store and suddenly you see someone you know from a distance?
Oh yes, I know exactly where this is going. You know them, but you do not know them well enough to actually want to have a full conversation with them.
Yes, precisely. They are an acquaintance, like a former coworker, an old high school classmate, or maybe a friend of a friend.
It is that split second of decision making. Do you run up and say hello, or do you quickly turn around and pretend you are deeply interested in a can of soup?
I am definitely the person who starts studying the soup can like it holds the secrets of the universe. It is so awkward.
It really is. The funny thing is that we all do it, yet we all feel so guilty when we do. Why do you think that is, Emma?
I think it's because we do not want to seem rude, but at the same time, we just don't have the social energy for a sudden, unexpected conversation.
That is so true. Sometimes you're just in your own world, thinking about your chores, and you're not prepared to switch on your social brain.
Exactly. You're wearing your comfortable sweatpants, your hair is a mess, and you just want to buy your milk and go home in peace.
And then, boom, there they are, right in the dairy aisle. It's like a movie scene, but instead of action, it's just pure social awkwardness.
It really is a test of our reflexes. My phone suddenly becomes the most fascinating object in the world the moment I see someone.
The classic phone shield. I think that's the number one strategy used by humans in the 21st century to avoid eye contact.
It's just so convenient. You can look incredibly busy and important just by staring intensely at a blank screen and frowning slightly.
Yes, you have to do the frown. If you do not frown, they might think you're just playing a game and try to interrupt you anyway.
You have to look like you are reading a very serious, life-altering email. That is the secret to a successful avoidance strategy.
I have actually done that, and then I realized my phone was completely dead. So I was just staring at a black reflection of my own guilty face.
That is hilarious, Tom. It makes you realize how silly we look from the outside when we try to escape these little social situations.
It really does. But today we are going to talk about all the different ways we deal with this, the funny stories, and how to navigate it.
Yes, and we'll also help our listeners learn some great natural English expressions that people use when they talk about these awkward moments.
This is going to be a highly relatable episode, so grab a cup of tea or coffee, get comfortable, and let's get started.
Yes, let's dive right in. I can't wait to hear some of your embarrassing stories, Tom, because I know you have plenty of them.
Oh, you have no idea. My life is basically a series of awkward encounters, and I'm ready to share them all today.
Perfect. Let's get into the main part of our conversation and look at these funny moments in more detail.
So, Emma, let us start with the most common scenario. You are walking down a relatively quiet street and you see someone approaching from the opposite direction.
Oh, that is the absolute worst. Because the distance is so long. You see them from about 50 meters away, which means you have too much time to think.
Yes, the 50-meter buffer zone. If you wave immediately, you have to walk toward each other in awkward silence for the next 30 seconds.
Exactly. You cannot just keep waving the whole time. So what do? Do you look down at your feet until you are closer?
Personally, I try to play it cool. I just look around at the buildings, maybe look at a tree, and pretend I am just enjoying nature.
To play it cool? That is a great expression, Tom. What exactly does that mean for our listeners who might not have heard it before?
Well, to play it cool means to act calm and relaxed, especially when you are actually feeling nervous or stressed. You want to look like nothing is wrong.
Ah, I love that. So you are panicking on the inside, but on the outside, you're just a relaxed guy looking at trees.
Precisely. I am trying to look like the most relaxed person in the world, even though my heart is beating fast because I do not want to talk.
But what happens if they also see you and you both make eye contact? That is the moment of no return.
Oh, once you make eye contact, it is over. You cannot pretend you didn't see them anymore because that is just plain rude.
Wait, to make eye contact? Just to make sure everyone understands, that means when two people look directly into each other's eyes at the same time, right?
Yes, exactly. When your eyes meet their eyes. Once that happens, the connection is made and you are socially obligated to acknowledge them.
It's like a laser beam connecting two people. Once that connection is established, you have to do the polite head nod or wave.
Yes, the micro nod, the quick upward nod for friends, or the polite downward nod for people you do not know very well.
I always do the downward nod. It feels more formal and respectful, but it also signals that I'm not planning to stop and talk.
It's a great signal. It says, I see you, I respect your existence, but I am moving forward with my life and you should too.
But sometimes they don't get the signal. They actually stop walking, open their arms, and say your name.
Oh, the dreaded stop. That's when you realize you cannot escape. You have to stop too, and you have to engage.
And that's when I always bump into people I really did not expect to see, like my old dentist or a neighbor from 5 years ago.
To bump into someone, that is another excellent phrase. Does it mean you physically crash into them on the street?
Not quite. To bump into someone means to meet them completely by accident, without planning it. You just happen to be in the same place at the same time.
Right. It's a coincidence. Like when you're at the grocery store and suddenly you see your former high school teacher, you bumped into them.
Exactly. And when you bump into them, you have to start the conversation, which usually starts with a very standard, "Oh my gosh, how are you?"
Yes, and then comes the challenge of trying to remember their name if you have forgotten it. That is a whole different level of panic.
Oh, forgetting names is the absolute worst. You just have to avoid using their name entirely and hope they don't notice.
I usually just call everyone mate or buddy to cover up my terrible memory, but that doesn't always work with former teachers.
No, calling your old history teacher buddy might be a little too casual, Tom. I wouldn't recommend that.
Probably not. But let's go back to the grocery store because I think that's the ultimate arena for these awkward encounters.
The grocery store is a dangerous place. There are so many aisles, which means there are so many opportunities for multiple encounters.
Yes, the multiple encounter problem. This is when you bump into someone in the first aisle, you say hello, and then you see them again in the third aisle.
Oh, that is incredibly painful. What do you do the second time? Do you say hello again, or do you just smile awkwardly?
The second time you usually just do a little chuckle. The third time you pretend you're very interested in the nutritional facts of oatmeal.
By the fourth time, you're actively hiding behind the potato chip display, praying they don't see you again.
I have actually abandoned my shopping cart before because I saw someone I knew in 3 different aisles and I just couldn't handle a fourth time.
No way, Tom. You left your whole cart. That's extreme. You must have really wanted to avoid them.
I did. It was an old roommate who owed me money and I just didn't want to have that awkward conversation next to the frozen pizzas.
Okay, that is a very valid reason to abandon a shopping cart. I think anyone would have done the same in that situation.
Thank you. I felt bad about the cart, but my mental peace was worth more than the groceries at that moment.
But it shows how far we are willing to go just to avoid a few minutes of uncomfortable conversation. It's quite fascinating.
It is. We are social creatures, yet we spend so much energy trying to avoid social interactions with people we actually know.
I think it's because we value our personal space and our private time so much, especially when we are out running errands.
Yes, errands are supposed to be a solitary activity. You have a checklist in your head, and any interruption ruins your flow.
Exactly. You're on a mission to get bread, milk, and eggs, and suddenly you have to explain your entire career path to someone you haven't seen in 5 years.
It's the sudden transition from errand mode to social mode that is so difficult. It takes a lot of mental energy to make that switch.
It really does. And then you have to think of things to say, which leads to the next challenge, making conversation.
Yes, the conversation itself is often the hardest part because you both know you don't really have much to say to each other.
So you just end up talking about the weather or how busy the store is. It's just filler conversation.
Absolutely. It's like a script that we all follow, but nobody actually enjoys reading it. It's just polite noise.
But we do it because the alternative, which is standing in silence, is even more uncomfortable.
Oh, silence is deadly. If you just stand there looking at each other without speaking, it feels like an eternity.
So we choose the lesser of two evils and talk about the rain. It's a universal human solution.
It really is. I wonder if this happens in every culture, or if some cultures are more relaxed about just saying a quick hello and moving on.
I think it depends on the culture, but from my experience, many people around the world feel this type of social anxiety to some degree.
That makes me feel better. It's nice to know that I am not the only one who is hidden behind a display of toilet paper to avoid someone.
Oh, you're definitely not alone, Tom. I think there's a silent club of toilet paper hiders all over the globe.
We should make t-shirts for this club. Although if we wore them in public, we might have to talk to other members, which defeats the purpose.
That is a very good point, Tom. A club for people who avoid people cannot have meetings or t-shirts. It has to be completely anonymous.
Yes, we just acknowledge each other with a very distant, polite nod, and then immediately walk in opposite directions.
That sounds like the perfect club for me. Sign me up, but please don't call or email me about it.
Deal. We will communicate only through silent thoughts and occasional grocery store avoidance maneuvers.
Perfect. I think that's a very solid plan. But let's talk more about what happens when you actually get stuck in the conversation.
Yes, that's where the real strategy comes in. How do you survive the encounter once you've been caught?
That's a big question. And I think we have a lot to share about the transition from starting the chat to finding a way out.
Definitely. Let's continue this discussion because I want to talk about how we actually handle the conversation itself.
Yes, let's move on to that in the next part of our chat. There's still so much to talk about.
Okay, Emma, so now we are in the situation where avoidance has failed. You have made eye contact, you bumped into each other, and you are standing there.
Yes, the trap has closed. There is no escape. Now you have to make small talk, which is always the first step.
To make small talk, that is a very common phrase. Can you explain what that means exactly for our listeners?
Of course. To make small talk means to have a polite, friendly conversation about light topics like the weather, sports, or general daily life.
Right. It is not a deep discussion about philosophy or politics. It is just light, easy conversation to keep things friendly.
Exactly. You ask things like, how has your week been? Or can you believe how much it has been raining lately?
And the key to making small talk is that you do not actually have to care deeply about the answers. It is just about being polite.
Yes, it is a social ritual. But the challenge is when the small talk runs out of steam after about 30 seconds.
Oh, that is the danger zone. You have both agreed that the weather is bad, and now there is a sudden silence.
That is when you need to have a quick escape plan. You cannot just stand there in silence, so you have to find a way to slip away.
To slip away? That sounds very sneaky. What does that phrase mean in this context, Emma?
It means to leave quietly or politely without causing any fuss or making the other person feel bad. You're basically making a smooth exit.
Ah, the art of the smooth exit. That is a highly valuable life skill. How do you usually slip away from an awkward conversation?
I usually use the grocery excuse. I will say something like, well, I should let you go and I need to get my ice cream before it melts.
Oh, the melting ice cream excuse. That is brilliant. It creates a sense of urgency that nobody can argue with.
Exactly. No one wants to be responsible for ruined ice cream. It's a perfect, polite way to end the conversation quickly.
I usually use the time excuse. I will look at my watch and say, oh wow, I did not realize the time. I have to run to a meeting.
That is also a classic, but it's a bit risky if you're wearing sweatpants and holding a bag of potato chips. It does not look very professional.
That is true. It is hard to convince someone you're rushing to an important business meeting when you're wearing a hoodie and flip-flops.
Yes, you have to match your excuse to your current appearance. Otherwise, they'll know you're just trying to escape.
Good point. I will have to save the business meeting excuse for when I'm actually wearing a collared shirt.
Another good one is, I will let you get back to your shopping. It sounds very polite because you're focusing on their time, not yours.
Oh, that is clever. You're pretending to be considerate of their busy schedule when in reality you just want to run away.
Exactly. It's all about how you frame it. You make it seem like you are doing them a favor by ending the conversation.
I love that. It's polite, it's effective, and it leaves everyone feeling good about themselves.
But what if they don't take the hint? What if they say, oh, don't worry, I'm not in a hurry, let's catch up?
Oh, that is the worst case scenario. To catch up, that is another phrasal verb we hear all the time. What does it mean?
To catch up means to talk about what has happened in your lives since you last saw each other. You're sharing updates and news.
Right, so they want the full story. They want to know about your job, your family, your hobbies, and everything else.
Yes, and that can take a long time, which is exactly what you were trying to avoid in the first place.
When that happens, you really have to be firm but polite. You have to repeat your exit line with a bit more determination.
Yes, you have to physically start moving your body slightly in the direction you want to go. It's a nonverbal cue.
Ah, the body language shift. You take a half step back, you point your feet toward the exit, and you hold your bags tightly.
It sounds funny, but body language is so powerful. If you keep standing completely still, they will keep talking forever.
It's true. You have to show that your body is already leaving, even if your mouth is still saying polite goodbye words.
It's a delicate dance, Tom. You have to balance politeness with self-preservation.
Self-preservation is the perfect way to put it. You are protecting your peace of mind and your daily schedule.
But sometimes these encounters can actually turn out to be quite nice if you just relax and enjoy them.
Really? Has that actually happened to you, Emma, or is this just a beautiful theory?
No, it has happened. Once I bumped into an old friend from university whom I hadn't seen in years, and I was tempted to avoid her.
But you didn't? You chose to engage instead of hiding?
I did. I decided to play it cool, made eye contact, and said hello. We ended up having a really wonderful conversation.
And you did not regret it. You did not wish you were looking at soup cans instead.
Not at all. We actually went to get a coffee right then and there, and we spent an hour catching up on everything.
Wow, that is a rare success story. It shows that sometimes our fear of awkwardness stops us from having really nice moments.
It really does. Sometimes we're so focused on our comfort zones that we forget how nice it is to connect with people.
That's a great point. Maybe we should try to be a bit more open to these spontaneous encounters, even if they feel a bit scary at first.
I agree. Of course, if it's someone who owes you money, like your old roommate, hiding is still totally acceptable.
Absolutely, that rule still stands. Some exceptions are necessary for our financial and emotional safety.
Of course, but for regular acquaintances, maybe we can try to wave instead of looking at our phones.
It's a good goal. I will try to do that next time I'm at the store. I will keep my phone in my pocket and see what happens.
I will do the same, Tom. We can report back on how many awkward conversations we survive next week.
It's a deal. Let's see if we can actually make some small talk without crying inside.
I'm sure we can do it. It just takes a little bit of practice and a positive attitude.
And maybe a box of chocolates nearby, just in case we need a quick emotional recovery afterward.
Chocolates are always a good idea, Tom. I highly support that addition to our plan.
Before we finish today, thinking about our struggles with these social situations reminded me of some great natural phrases we used today.
Yes, we used some really common expressions that native speakers use all the time when they talk about these awkward moments.
I think it would be really helpful to look at how we can use these phrases in our everyday conversations to sound more natural.
I agree. For example, when we talked about meeting someone unexpectedly, we used the phrase bump into.
Yes, instead of saying, I met my old friend by accident at the store, you can just say, I bumped into my old friend.
It sounds so much more natural and conversational. Native speakers use it almost every time they talk about unplanned meetings.
Another one was play it cool. It is such a great idiom for when you're trying to look calm, but you are actually nervous.
Right, like if you are waiting for a job interview and you're shaking, you might tell yourself to play it cool.
It means you are hiding your anxiety and acting like everything is completely under control.
And then we had make eye contact, which is very important in social situations. It is much more natural than saying, look at someone's eyes.
Yes, we use make eye contact to describe that specific moment when two people look at each other directly.
We also talked about making small talk. This is a key phrase for any social or professional setting.
It is. Instead of saying, we had a conversation about unimportant things, you just say, we made small talk.
It is a very common activity at parties, business events, or when waiting in line with strangers.
And of course, when the small talk is over, you might need to slip away from the conversation.
Yes, to slip away is a lovely, gentle way to describe leaving a place or a conversation without being noticed or causing trouble.
Finally, we talked about catching up, which is what we do when we want to get updates on someone's life.
Yes, you can say, let us meet for a coffee to catch up. It is the perfect way to invite someone to share their news.
All of these phrases are so useful for daily English, especially when you're navigating social interactions.
They really are. They help you describe these subtle social dynamics in a way that sounds fluent and natural.
It is all about learning those small chunks of language that native speakers use to describe common human experiences.
Exactly. It makes your English sound much warmer and more engaging to the listener.
I hope our listeners can try using some of these phrases in their own conversations this week.
Me too. They're really fun to practice, and they're incredibly common in both casual and professional English.
Absolutely. It's a great way to make your English sound more natural and less like a textbook.
Yes, that is always our goal here on the podcast. We want to help you learn real, living English.
Speaking of remembering new words, did you know we have a PDF script available for all of our episodes now?
Yes, it is a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to review what they have learned today and practice their pronunciation.
It is really helpful because you can read along while you listen, which is great for connection between spelling and sound.
And you can also use it for shadowing practice, which is a great technique where you speak at the same time as us to improve your rhythm.
It is completely free to download, and we have put the link in the description of this video as well as pinned it in the comments below.
So make sure to check that out if you want to take your English learning to the next level.
And while you are down there in the description, do not forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell.
Yes, that way you will never miss a new lesson with us. We have so many exciting topics coming up.
We really appreciate all of your support. It helps us keep creating these lessons for English learners all over the world.
It truly does. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed and shared our videos with their friends.
You are all amazing, and we love being a part of your English learning journey.
We really do. It is such a privilege to help you grow your confidence in English every single week.
All right, and speaking of reviewing, before we say goodbye today, let us do a quick review of our 6 target expressions.
That is a great idea. It is always good to reinforce what we have learned before we close the episode.
Let us start with the first one, bump into. Emma, can you give us a quick example sentence for this one?
Sure. I bumped into my former neighbor yesterday at the post office, and we talked for a few minutes.
Perfect. And our second phrase was play it cool. Here's an example. Even though I was extremely nervous during the presentation, I tried to play it cool.
That is a great one. The third phrase was make eye contact. For example, it is polite to make eye contact when you are talking to someone.
Excellent. Our fourth phrase was make small talk. For example, I am not very good at making small talk with people I do not know well.
I think many people can relate to that one, Tom. Our fifth phrase was slip away. For example, the party was getting very loud, so we decided to slip away quietly.
Perfect. And our final phrase was catch up. For example, I am meeting my sister this weekend, so we can catch up on all the family news.
Those are all such useful sentences, Tom. I hope they help our listeners see how these words function in real context.
I am sure they will. It is always helpful to see multiple examples to really understand the meaning and usage.
Absolutely. Learning vocabulary in context is the absolute best way to make sure you remember it for a long time.
It really is. Well, we have covered a lot of ground today, from awkward grocery store encounters to useful social phrases.
We certainly have. It has been a lot of fun talking about this today, and I hope our listeners enjoyed it as much as we did.
I'm sure they did. It's such a relatable topic, and we all need a little laugh about our shared social struggles sometimes.
Definitely. It makes us feel more connected to realize we are all experiencing the same funny, awkward moments.
It does. And now we want to hear from you, our lovely listeners. What about you guys?
Yes, how do you handle running into acquaintances in public? Do you play it cool and wave, or do you pretend to look at your phone?
Or maybe you have an even better escape strategy that we did not mention today. Let us know in the comments below.
Yes, we really want to read your answers and hear your funny stories. They always make us smile.
Thank you so much for listening and studying with us today, everyone. You are doing a fantastic job.
Keep practicing, keep listening, and we'll see you in our next episode of Emma's English Talk.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a wonderful, awkward-free week.
Bye, everyone. See you next time.